Welcome into Juckeye and Bucks for another Juckeye recruiting chat as we have got a night game at Ohio Stadium. The Minnesota Golden Gophers come in, and while it's not, crazy exciting, it's better than Ohio. So there's going to be obviously some recruits that are going to get invited, some flip prospects that the Buckeyes are working on. We will talk about them. We will talk about guys that are potentially flipping out of this class as well. Some unfortunate news and some news that is a big shoulder shrug. We'll get to that at the end. But first, we talk about Jaylen Brewster as Jaylin Brewster makes his college announcement on Saturday during that Ohio State game. Brewster out of Texas. And before I go any further talking about Brewster, I'm just going to tell you straight up, this kid's not coming to Ohio State. And anybody telling you otherwise, wishful thinking. So if you want to turn it off right now, I'm not going to say anything other than that about Brewster, but I think it's worth talking about. And the reason I think it's worth talking about is because it's just another data point as to how Ohio State is handling this since the House settlement, how they're handling money, how they're handling recruiting when it comes to the top of the tier prospects. So Brewster, a 2027 kid who is not going to reclassify as many thought he might. 6'3", 300 pounds, came to camp at Ohio State. And it was essentially like a trip back home for dad, who's from Ohio, and they loved it. And Jaylin loved it. And Jaylin talked about being back and seeing his dad, how he was back at home and how much he really liked seeing that and how much he liked Ohio. This is the best defensive tackle to come out in the last few cycles. And I think the Buckeyes think that as well. He's just a tank. He's a big, massive tank, and he reminds you of, one of a Georgia or Alabama, big dude in the middle. This kid runs the ball, and don't mean like from the goal line, like from the 50. He's got moves like Deuce Gerald's did, but Deuce Gerald's was 260. He's a legit 300, an athletic freak in a big monster body, and he's only 17 years old. Now, his agent came out this week, Derek Shelby, and he had some things to say. He believes that obviously this kid can get to the league no matter where he goes, and he's correct. He said there's a lot of dialogue between Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Indiana, and Oregon. Notice Indiana got themselves into the mix there, which is pretty notable. But a lot of dialogue with those 6 or 7 schools, and they're all working their tails off right now with me, the agent, just as much as they are with Jaylin and Robert, his dad. Going to be very competitive for this kid, and he's still undecided. Now, dad was an offensive lineman who went to Ball State, played for the Cowboys, and it certainly looks at this point like Texas Tech has essentially got this thing locked up as they kind of go for the number 1 class, it looks like, in 2027. And let that sink in. It really doesn't take that many number 1 classes and portal cycle hauls to totally turn a roster in the Big 12 into an every year playoff contender, right? Like, if they can put together a roster that looks like Oregon in the Big 12, they're in the playoffs every single year at Texas Tech. It's not going to take them long. And they're certainly going for that in 2027 as they've got the number 1 edge, looking for the number 1 tackle, and they know how to do it. They're doing it on the offensive lines. Now, they did just lose a 5-star offensive lineman who flipped to Oklahoma, but they're also going for the number 1 quarterback in the class, and it's looking pretty good for them there. So this can be had, man. This can be bought. This can be purchased. We're seeing it right before our very eyes at Texas Tech. Now, how much should we concern ourselves with Texas Tech getting these type of guys? Well, the recruits that they're taking, the majority of these guys are guys that would end up at Georgia or Texas. So ultimately, spreading that talent out from a couple of our biggest competitors, probably a good thing for Ohio State, even if it means we lose the chance of getting a couple of long shot guys. But Brewster was one of the guys Ohio State could have potentially got, let's say 5 years ago. Brewster might have been the guy, one of the guys that they would have pulled out of Texas. Brewster might have been another Devin Sanchez. A lot of people think that Ohio State, Texas A&M are the 2 other hats on the table here, along with Texas Tech, based on what his agent's been saying. And I'm positive that the Buckeyes view Jaylin Brewster as what we would consider an I don't care what the locker room thinks type of guy. And we've talked a lot about Ohio State and their strategy of paying freshman players. And you will hear people say, you can't bring in some freshmen making more money than guys who've put in their blood, sweat, and tears into the program. Unless, of course, he's different. And people will always use the Jeremiah Smith standard, which is a ridiculous standard. They do that with more than just Jeremiah Smith. So you can just talk about Devin Sanchez, for instance. Devin Sanchez is the prototype. He's a different caliber of cornerback prospect. Nobody cared when they were offering Devin Sanchez, whatever they offered Devin Sanchez, what Bryce West was thinking about what Devin Sanchez was making, for instance. And nobody's going to care what Trajan Odom or Maxwell Roy think about what Brewster is getting offered. Some guys are just different, and Ohio State, when they believe in them like that, they know that that guy's going to come in and show everybody right off the rip on the team, oh, that's why. So when they believe in a guy like that, they're willing to go to, different measures than they normally would. This is an anchor in the middle that you could have for this kid. Might start as a freshman at a big time program, including Ohio State. And it's that type of guy. So a different type of guy, they're willing to go to different measures than they normally would. Now, Texas Tech is obviously going to pay this kid an amount of revenue share and then guaranteed NIL money that's going to be a massive sum. And it really doesn't matter how much Ohio State gives him in revenue share to try to, even if it's way more outside of their comfort zone, they're never going to be able to compete with what Texas Tech is going to be able to offer because they've got a billionaire bankrolling this, and he will scratch whatever check is necessary. There's no line that is too far. There's no line that isn't, crossable for him. Now, on the other hand, you've got Ohio State, who's just working with revenue share that literally has a salary cap. So there is clearly a line Ohio State's working with. And there would be anyway, even if they were working with guaranteed NIL dollars on top of that, but they're not. They're just working with revenue share. So we're probably looking at a pretty vast difference when he looks at the opportunity to make money from Ohio State and from Texas Tech. And Texas A&M is playing this pretty shady as well. So Ohio State clearly going to be the number 3 offer of those hats on the table. And when we look at this, a lot of people will say, what's the difference? Why don't you just go where you really want to go? If you're a guaranteed top 10 pick, like it looks like this guy is, who cares about a couple extra $1 million coming out of high school when you're going to make $40 million in the NFL? The people that say that are people who are not in the position to make that couple extra $1 million. Like, what's a couple extra $1 million? I don't know. It could be anything. You could pick 2 people in your family you love and say, here's $1 million I'm going to invest for you and take care of you for the rest of your life. Like, that's a couple $1 million. And people talk about it like it's just like, yeah, whatever, you're going to make it anyway. That's not how anybody looks at that. And that's why we've seen what we've seen. You can buy a roster. We're watching it happen in front of us. And it's unfortunate. I hate it. I know a lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. I get it. We all have different feelings on it, but this is what it is. Now, the truth of it is, in Brewster's case, not going to come to Ohio State because of this. He hasn't gotten up to the shoe since this summer, and that pretty much says it all, right? Now, why it's notable? Ohio State is offering outside of their comfort zone, and we have seen a couple times this cycle them go to the lengths that make them, a little bit out of their comfort zone, like with Luke Waffle. With Luke Waffle, with Jaylin Brewster now, they've gone outside the normal comfort zone to try to secure an elite defensive line prospect, which I think is good. I think it's a good thing that we can see they're willing to have the flexibility to do that. And they thought they had Luke Waffle locked down, but then USC came in with whoever's bankrolling what's bankrolling their thing, and they're just not going to lose. They're not going to have a limit as to how far they're going to go. And that's the same thing we're looking at with Brewster. They're going to go to the ends of the earth. Whatever they need to do to make it happen, they're going to make it happen. The same thing we saw with Larry Ellison when it came to Bryce Underwood. The check was going to be whatever the check needed to be. And unless you've got a billionaire bankrolling you and you're willing to play fast and loose with the rules, you're going to get beat here. And Ohio State has neither the billionaire bankroll or playing fast and loose with the rules. And that's why it's looking pretty bleak to land a prospect that has a billionaire on the other side going after him. And that's why they're not going to get Brewster. But it is of note that they're going to extra lengths to try to get him. and it's something that we can log moving forward. So during the game Saturday, we will obviously keep tabs on this thing. And while we're streaming live, we'll pull up. We would normally go live for a decision like this anyway, if we really thought Ohio State was one of the three hats. So we'll be live. So we'll pull up the stream and we'll pop him in on the stream live when he makes his announcement. If the people in the chat want to talk about that, unless the game's really tight at the time, then we probably will just ignore it and talk about it later. But join us on Saturday for that one. Now, let's get to some more realistic targets, and we will start with some of the visitors that will be in attendance, starting with 3-star Kmary Bing. He is a safety out of Maryland, St. Francis, which is their powerhouse Catholic school that produces a ton of talent, and he's committed to Maryland. 6 foot, 190 pounds. Alabama, Indiana also trying to flip him. So aside from Indiana, some really high caliber programs after the 3-star. Note, Indiana also in on this kid, just like Brewster. And it's interesting as we see, like, they're clearly not trying to just be okay overachieving. They're going after the big dogs now, and they've got the money to do so. They got the alumni base. They're getting the support. Just a side note, and something we'll keep paying attention to. But I think this is a kid that can be had by Matt Guerrieri. There's not a lot of film on him to show you here, and what there is incredibly shaky. I don't know why that is. Multiple different games, we've got shaky film, and St. Francis is a pretty, powerhouse school. But he said that Matt Guerrieri told him he's the best free safety in the country. I don't know if that's true, like if Matt really believes that, but he looks pretty good. And he's definitely trying to get him in a safety class that currently only has Blaine Bradford. Technically, it has 2 with Simeon Caldwell, but Simeon thought to be a guy who, while he will start his career in the safety room, he's probably never going to start at safety. He'll probably funnel down to the linebacker room, coming in with a similar frame to Sonny Styles and kind of similar profile, probably be on a similar track. And when we look next year at the safety room, you've got Jalen McClain, you've got Malik Hartford, you've got Fahim Delane and Blaine Bradford, probably as your top 4 guys. And then you've got Leroy Roker, Deshaun Stewart, Cody Haddad. So you could certainly use another guy coming in. And that is what Matt Guerrieri will try to do with Kmary Bing. But he won't be the only St. Francis kid in the building. 2027 cornerback, Raylon Henry out of St. Francis, who is a big dog, top of the board corner in 2027, 247's number 3 corner in the country, will also be in attendance, 6 foot 180. And Tim Walton will try to get this kid we'll try to get this kid who's coming off of a whiteout against Oregon to see the electricity in the air at the shoe against Minnesota. We'll see what he thinks about that. But when we look at Walt and we look at the cornerback room, that's a 2027 kid, which doesn't really do anything for the class of 2026 that currently only has, and I say only, I don't mean to be dismissive. I love Jordan Thomas, but he is the only cornerback in the class of 2026. And when we look back to last year in 2025, Devin Sanchez, and then a big project in Jordan Woods, who nobody's under the illusion is, going to just advance into a starter. You're kind of rolling the dice. Is this guy, he's kind of a projecty guy. So Devin Sanchez, Jordan Woods in back-to-back classes, you're not looking great on your numbers, as next year the corners, Jermaine's gone, IGB's gone, which leaves you Bryce West, Aaron Scott, Devin Sanchez, Jordan Woods, Jordan Thomas, Miles Lockhart's a nickel. Like, you're low, man. You're way short here. And Walt has got to find somebody to bring in, or they're probably going to end up portaling at corner. And that is not the situation they ever want to be in. They don't want to have to portal for numbers. They want to portal for upgrades, fill a few spots that haven't worked out, misses in recruiting, not for multiple numbers. And that's what they would have to be doing right now if Walt doesn't end up flipping a couple of kids in 2026. Now, moving to linebacker and James Laurinaitis. Jacob Curry, kid we talked about out of Nice in Florida last week, a couple of weeks ago, 6'1", 205, and he looks like he is shot out of a cannon when he takes off. So Jacob Curry, the former Northwestern commit, blows up his senior year, and now he's got Oklahoma, Ohio State, Auburn all after him, and he was at Oklahoma 2 weeks ago to take in that Oklahoma-Auburn game. This will be his first time coming to visit campus at Ohio State. Gets to see a sweet night game. The defense should probably play great. And that'll be interesting. Of course, Jaden Williams also has not had an official yet to Ohio State, did visit 3 weeks ago, has his offer now, and these guys are kind of the same mold, 6'1", 205, same size. James going to get one of them. Personally, I hope that's Jaden Williams, but, we'll see. Either one will be a good addition to the class. Then we go to defensive line. Former Clemson commit Dre Quinn, decommitted from Clemson. This is a big, long edge rusher out of Buford, Georgia. Buford, Edric Houston's high school, Seth McLaughlin's high school. We've had a lot of kids from Buford. Texas was his runner-up before he committed to Clemson. Not a super high-rated guy, outside of the top 300, the 39th edge and prospect in the country. I think just with his measurables at 6'5", 225, he is, substantially more valuable than that. The question here is, what is Texas going to pay? How bad do they need this guy? Because they will go to lengths to get somebody, obviously, that we know Ohio State won't. However, he did commit to Clemson the first time around, and Clemson doesn't generally pay like Texas pays. So maybe he's a kid with different priorities. We'll just have to wait and see. But this would be a really good pickup as we look at the class right now at edge. Honestly, you've got kind of 3.5 interior guys in this class. You got 3 interior guys and Damari Simeon, Jameer Perez, and Cam Brickle. Then Kari Wilder, 5-star Mr. Everything. I think he's going to kind of play like a Caden Curry role where he's all over the line. Not really a true edge, though I don't think that really matters in this defense. It's just kind of a designation. But how long will you be playing this defense? How long will Matt Patricia be here? We don't know yet. But we're talking about a true edge when we talk about Dre Quinn. And I think it would be a real nice addition to the class. So he'll come up. We'll see how that goes. Another defensive lineman who's one of my favorites in 2027, the number 2 player in Indiana, Jaylen Brewster, who is a top 100 4-star and a guy with he's like 6'4", 6'5", 225 total dude. And I would sure love to see Larry get a really good relationship with him. We've missed out. Look, Caden Curry from Indiana. We missed out on a couple guys from Indiana I'd love to have last cycle, but they're producing some really good defensive linemen. And this guy is just very advanced physically, traps up to his ears at 17. Gotta have him. I'd sure love to have him. And we will see what he has to say afterwards. Tyler Bowen in the offensive line. We will have one of the best tackles in the country, 6'5", 330-pound Quay Ford up in town at the game. And he is from Texarkana, Texas. And I'll tell you, I got a hard time anymore getting myself jazzed about a prospect like this. And he's a top 10 tackle in the class. It just reminds me of Felix Ojo and the number of guys we've seen at this point who are top 10 tackles in the class and just end up, this is a guy, for instance, that already has Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Oregon. All the big money guys are after him right now. And it just seems like such a long shot at this point to pull guys like that. Even as we saw Felix Ojo, like, yeah, you were so close, yet so far away in the end. Tyler Bowen is a guy that I have the utmost confidence in. He is going to assemble not just great classes, but they're going to play nasty. And I love the way this offensive line is playing. One of the nastier looking units we've had in a long time. And also when we look at him coming in an abbreviated class, achieves objective number 1 and number 2, Sam Greer and Max Riley. I'm not worried about offensive line recruiting. I think he's going to continue to be excellent at it. But this type of prospect, this super highly rated kid out of Texas, it's just like, yeah, these ones right now don't feel like things that are going to get my juices flowing, because it seems like it's going to be a big waste of my energy to get all involved emotionally in it. And I've learned this time and time again. So I will stick with getting excited about the kids in the upper Midwest. And, but nonetheless, this kid's coming up to visit. We'll see how it goes. Inevitably, he'll like it. He'll love it. He'll talk a lot of good things about it, and he'll end up at Oregon or Texas Tech. Now, the Buckeyes most likely going to lose Corbyn Fordham here really soon. Corbyn Fordham, tight end, out of the Bulls school in Florida, teammate of Simeon Caldwell. He actually committed first, and this kid loved Ohio State. Him transferring, or I'm sorry, not transferring, but decommitting and committing to Florida State seems pretty inevitable at this point. His dad was a Florida State guy, and Florida State obviously was down big time last year, so it didn't really look like a plausible destination with likely Mike Norvell getting fired soon. Well, now they're looking really good on the up and up. Corbyn Fordham is a 3-star, not even top 100 kid in the state of Florida that I was happy getting because Keenan Bailey was happy getting him. And Keenan Bailey's evaluations have been really, really good. So I just trust Keenan. Tight ends are really tough to evaluate. They've got a ton of growing to do. This kid's 6'3.5", up to 227 now. And the way he loved Ohio State, I was like, all right, man, I'm all down. I'm going to support this kid because he's talking all the right stuff about Ohio State. Well, now it turns out this kid, who was one of the last guys I would assume is going to flip out of the class, is going to flip. And what does it mean? It's an enormous shrug of the shoulders. It means nothing. Keenan Bailey can find this guy in Ohio right now. In fact, he's talking to him. His name's Nick Latour out of Lebanon, Ohio. And should he choose to bring in Nick Latour, a Louisville commit? Okay. It's an even swap. Nick's even bigger at 6'5", 230 right now, a 3-star, same exact type of prospect, really smart, got Penn, Yale, Furman, Cornell after him, but he's committed to Louisville. So I'm not concerned about this in the slightest. Or Keenan could go get Max Sutter if Ohio State wants to try to, get him out of that Alabama joint, which is really, really a big nut, and I doubt they will. And the reason that I don't think there's any reason to be concerned about this is not only is tight end loaded in 2027 in state with D'Angelo White, Jordan Karhoff, Anthony Cartwright up in Michigan, and the number one commit or prospect in the country, Brock Williams, who the Buckeyes in Georgia are fighting after right now. And we got a lot of Buckeyes with some really good relationships with him. But when we look at tight ends and we look at the roster right now with Will Kazmarek and Max Clare, like these guys are a dime a dozen in the portal, and they're so hard to evaluate when they're young. I'm not somebody who likes to rely on the portal for anybody, but if you're going to, tight end is a pretty damn good position. Maybe the best. It's maybe the best position to lean on the portal for because they are so hard to evaluate. They look like wide receivers when they're coming out. How much are they going to put on? When you put on the muscle mass, how much is going to slow them down. But you've also got two really good young guys in the system with Brody Lennon and Nate Roberts, who have both already passed Max LeBlanc. And Max LeBlanc, another reason it's a highly rated 4-star tight end. They're just hard to evaluate. So it doesn't concern me one bit that Corbyn Fordham is now flipping to Florida State, though it does feel like a bit of a slap in the face. Good luck to Corbyn. What's not an ultimate shrug of the shoulders is Aaron Thomas. And Aaron, there are some guys. Aaron is a kid who was playing defensive tackle, sophomore year, junior year moves over to offensive tackle where his dad played at Florida State. He is 6'6" and a smidge. He's over 300 pounds. He's a true tackle body out of Arizona. And the Buckeyes beat Texas A&M, among others, for his commitment. Now, some time ago, Florida State was, it was said that he was going to the Florida State-Miami game, and people were assuming that that was a recruiting visit. Aaron was very mad about that because he said, and he told me, and this is a recruitment, some of them I have some contact with throughout the process. This is one of them. And Aaron told me that him and his family go to Florida State games like every couple of years. This was not out of the ordinary, and it wasn't a recruiting visit. However, you and I both know that Mike Norvell knew he was coming and was planning on talking to him for sure, but it was not stated as a recruiting visit. Now, it certainly seems, he said at the time he wasn't going to take it. Now it certainly seems like he is going to take it, and Florida State, with the traction that they've got as a program, with dad being an alumni, and certainly now I've reached out to him to talk about this game. I haven't heard back. It sounds like Aaron Thomas, Corbyn Fordham might be rolling out of this class. And again, Tyler Bowen, with what he's got going on, Landry Breed of Mentor, not going to be a 1-for-1 if he gets him in this class. Landry Breed, Mentor, NC State commit. if you lose Aaron Thomas and you get Landry Breed in, that's not a 1-for-1. Landry Breed, not that true tackle body. Tyler Bowen's also offered Sean Doughty, who I think ends up at Georgia. He's a kid that came on just this year, got all the big offers, and he is a dog. I think if he had grown bigger a little earlier, this would have been one of the top 10 linemen in the class. But looks like Georgia's going to get a steal for the kid from Georgia who they developed. The state offered up to Georgia. Does this potentially open up the door for a bigger offer to Adam Guthrie out of Miami Trace? This is another one. I was pretty, I had a lot of contact with Adam with his representation throughout his recruitment. And Adam has a real affinity for Clemson, and Clemson does things a different way. And some kids just love the way Clemson does things, and they're just drawn to it. Now, Clemson is 1-3. Things look like they're potentially crumbling. However, Ohio State is his hometown school, who he also really wanted the offer from really bad. Tyler Bowen has now visited him. Does this open the door, now that Aaron Thomas is not in the class, for them to potentially offer a little more money, a little more enticement to come to Ohio State? And now there's one less tackle body in that freshman class. Instead of coming in with Sam Greer, Aaron Thomas, and then Adam Guthrie would have been a third. Now it would be Sam and Adam. Boy, I would love for this to happen. I really would. 2 Ohio boys, 2 true tackles, both of them 6'7". That would be pretty slick. So he's working on it. We'll see. Obviously, you never like to see a guy flip out of the class, but if this was a 1-for-1, Aaron Thomas goes out, Adam Guthrie comes in, I'd be pretty happy with that. I'd consider that an upgrade. We'll find out, though. Obviously, none of this is concrete. We don't know yet about Aaron Thomas, about Corbyn Fordham, but just a hunch and reading the tea leaves here doesn't look very good on either of them. But in the meantime, Tyler Bowen and his offensive line, dirt dogs, and you got to love it. Now, finally, we wrap up today's show. Our dude, Brady Edmunds, Juckeye OG. When Brady Edmunds talked about committing to Ohio State, and he did so on December 2nd. Was it December 2nd? Roughly that time frame. It was right after the Ohio State-Michigan game. And I talked to him about that game on the air when he was on the show. And I basically said to him, now, surely you heard all of this stuff about Ryan Day from the fan base. The people were mad. The troops were pissed off. And there was a lot of negativity in the air, so much so that a lot of people weren't even concerned or didn't even want to go to the Tennessee playoff game. And in that time frame, you doubled down and you committed. Why? And he said, I was at a restaurant with my family, and it was right after the game. He was at the game, and I heard the things people were saying, and I was like, geez, am I making the right decision here? And then I thought about it for a day, and I ultimately came to the decision, like, I really love Coach Day, but whether he's here or not, I want to be the quarterback at Ohio State. That's what I want to be. And anybody who in that situation would double down like that is just like, that's a true Buckeye right there. That's a guy who's got our back. We definitely got his here on Juck on Bucks. And I am furious that this kid at the time, the day he committed, was 247's number 2 quarterback in the class and number 15 overall prospect. And now he is the number 15 quarterback and number 200 some prospect, despite 6'5". He told me the other day he's now up to 220, got a cannon for an arm. The team is 5-1. They're going to make the playoffs. He had a 7-touchdown game this year. He's done nothing but get better, but they've just found all these other guys that are better than him. It's horse crap. And the reason for it is he was the first guy in the top 25 quarterbacks that committed. You are of no value to them anymore when you are a committed prospect, because they can't make all these little 5-star flip, right? They need that guy. They need that spot for somebody else. They need that spot for a guy who's rated really high. So now they can do all their little clickbait articles about who this top prospect is talking to. I can't think of it any other way. Prove me wrong. Andrew Ivins, Cooper Patania. How did this guy drop so far when he's done nothing but get better? I don't understand. He's got a howitzer for an arm. Guy throws a 60-yard ball on a rope. He busted off a 70-yard touchdown run, processes fast, and all the intangibles, smart as hell. He's perfect. He's the perfect quarterback prospect. I would love to know. I want answers. Makes me mad, man. And people say, like, who cares? Brady cares. I'll tell you straight up. Brady cares. In this day and age, agents use that number, man. That's a bargaining chip. That's a real tangible number. That number has monetary value to it. So if it doesn't appear above board, that's something that really makes me mad for any kid. If it doesn't appear above board, and it doesn't in this instance, it does not appear above board. Anyway, appreciate you guys. I'll let you know if I hear anything over the weekend. As always, join me for the live stream Saturday night. Ohio State, Gophers, PJ Fleck and all his weirdness will be in town. And hopefully we celebrate another victory. And the Buckeyes at that point will be 5 games into the season, which is honestly a third of the entirety of the season, including the playoffs. And that's pretty wild. I still don't think they have an offensive identity. Looking forward to what we're going to see from them on Saturday as far as the offense goes. And hopefully the defense can turn out another amazing performance, keep these guys under 10 points. It would be fantastic to see, as they've got a real deal quarterback, man. These guys can sling it around. Their rush defense is pretty stout. We'll see how the Buckeyes can run against them. We'll see if maybe we can use a little bit less tight ends. That would be, everybody would be happy to see a little bit less of the tight ends as we talk about tight ends today. My gosh, man, tight end university. Anyway, appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. JUCK'S out.